Good evening, all. It's Brev Sullivan. I'm here this evening to talk to you about coronavirus and how you can prevent the spread of this and how you can protect yourself. If you're coming to my channel and you're familiar with my music videos, what does this have to do with music? Anything and everything. I'm a musician. I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I depend on being a musician, not just playing in gigs at night and playing in a rock band and doing videos, but lessons, traveling and touring can be affected. And I think any type of musician out there that's doing music full time, such as I do, relies on that business just as an entrepreneur relies on their business. An entrepreneur that starts their business from the ground up, or a successful YouTuber, they know what it's like to hit the bricks, get up every day and have to work and really no one to depend on but themselves. So I'm depending on myself and my healthy lifestyle. When the coronavirus comes up, I've already been doing those preventative measures for many years before this. There are two types of people. You can be the alarmist, or you can be the person who stays calm and stays informed. Now, I don't disagree with anybody being alarmed and going out shopping, storing food, etc., and staying home. I can't afford to get sick. I've got to play gigs. If I don't show up for my gig, there's nobody to replace me. And I don't have a 9-to-5 job, and I don't have a 2-week sick leave. So again, taking a day off and being sick means being possibly replaced by the club owner who decides to bring in a new band. Now, hopefully the people that I work with have some sense of loyalty, but again, there's no contract there like some of you have with a 9-to-5. So my musical brothers and sisters who are watching this and listening to this and have to play all the time can relate to this, and they might have advice of their own. You might seek them out. The advice that I'm going to give to you is the same information that you can find yourself on the CDC website on the internet. I have that up right here. I'm going to pass along some of my information that I feel is from reliable sources. I've been practicing these healthy lifestyle tips I'll give you if you stick around to the end of the video. And I've been practicing these preventative measures from getting sick when I travel for well over 10 years. So hopefully that's worth something to you, and I'd like to share that with you. From my musical brothers and sisters, they all rely on one thing, is people to watch, to listen, to hear, to applaud, and to pay. One of the jobs that I do here in the East Coast where I live, in South Florida, is a tribute band business. I mentioned this in a couple of my videos. Tribute band business relies on usually an older clientele, 40 and up. All right. You heard the news announced today, they recommend people 60 and up staying home. This is going to affect the tribute band business that I'm part of. This means cancellations. And in fact, several musical brothers and sisters of mine that I know work in the same industry already announced that they're losing some gigs. So this is going to divert me to another point. It's important as a musician, just like the entrepreneur and an owner of a business, to know all aspects of the business. Now, an entrepreneur who starts a business knows the social media, they know how to run the show, they know how to open up the store in the morning, and they know how to go out there and get the customers. Eventually, when they're successful, they have people to do that for them. In a musician sense, I need to know all styles of music. I need to be able to pivot and do something else. If you look at my videos on the channel, you see I've got some jazz, I've got some rock, I've got some crazy guitar shred, and then I've got some videos here just giving lifestyle advice. So I'm able to pivot when I can. Now, fortunately, this coronavirus has not affected me, my health, because of my preventative measures. And remember, if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you some of those tips that I use to stay healthy when I travel and stay healthy just in general as a musician that performs daily and sometimes stays up late at night and gets up the next day and rocks it over again. Stick around to the end of the video. You'll get some nice lifestyle health tips as well as tips how to prevent that coronavirus disease from coming anywhere near you. Talking about the two types of people, I'm not the type of person to get alarmed. I feel that my practices and my healthy lifestyle keep me at my best. There are also people that can't help but be alarmed, especially if the news is announcing what they're announcing today. It's affecting economy. The coronavirus is affecting travel. It also is affecting the tours and concerts that some of my friends in the industry work in, or maybe concerts that I might be part of in the future. Right now, especially with this disease rampant. My reliable sources that I'm going to give to you at the end of the video are from advice from doctors, advice from people that I know that work in the health industry. I've had to seek them out in the past so that I can stay at my best and stay at my optimum so I can continue to travel and to perform. Musicians depend on travel. They depend on income from various sources. There is no way, if I'm a full-time musician or any other full-time performer, physically entertaining on stage, There's no way you're going to survive this business if you don't provide some preventative health measures. So it may look like it's a party all the time. The way music business is sold to you is that it's a big party and everybody's boozing it up. Couldn't be any further from the truth. And if you do know somebody like this that is doing that, eventually you see how it catches up with them. They either lose their life at a young age, they die before their time. So let's address some of those serious aspects of preventative health, lifestyle, and how this relates to not just music business, but any business. If you turn on the news today, they did make an announcement that people from 60 and up should stay home. I would say if you're a healthy 60-year-old and you're doing the same preventative measures and you always wash your hands, etc., to keep from getting sick, I would say it's nothing to be scared of. But yes, 60 and then the older 60s and then senior citizens after that, that is the age where something's going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong. You are at risk. So the news that you're hearing about events being closed, public events, concerts, traveling, people in assembly, more than 1,000 are being shut down. You heard some of the political races today that they had to cancel those rallies. Yes, that is smart advice with this coronavirus out there, but does not justify taking an alarmist position. If you're a young person and you have older parents and you have senior citizens in your family, grandma and grandpa, uncle, aunt, definitely something you should educate yourself about them. And just as I'm trying to educate you and trying to pass along my advice about surviving the music business and staying healthy, definitely something you could pass along to them in case there's anybody that's really worried and calm their fears. There's nothing wrong with that. You're going to stay around to the end of this video. Once again, I'm going to give you some really cool tips about healthy lifestyle that applies to the music business, what I've done to survive. Certainly, if you haven't led a healthy lifestyle now, just from watching the news, I'm sure you're doing it now. I'm sure you're taking those preventative measures now, washing your hands. You should never let up on that standard of keeping yourself healthy. Okay, let's talk about traveling. This summer, I already canceled a couple of trips. I was planning on taking a trip out to the West Coast and was planning to take one to Nashville. Those are nixed until this thing blows over, until it's deemed safe. So that has affected me. But I would cancel those trips anyway if there was something out there that was dangerous or something not worth venturing into or spending the money on. So that means I'll continue working as a musician from home and doing my local gigs. As far as any tours or anything, probably not going to get those this year. So again, as I pointed out, the fact that I can pivot, I can play small local venues, I can teach, I can take on more work in some of the tribute band business as long as that's available. That was worth all the time spending learning all those styles. It made me crazy for a while learning how to play guitar in different styles, and that's why I have so many crazy guitars from day to next. Things are being canceled, events are being postponed. Boy, talk about reality hitting home. I need to keep working as a musician. I need to keep teaching music, and I need to be able to do what I want to do because that's my lifestyle and that's how I make my money. How can you apply this to something else other than music? Diligence, research, education. I told you that at the end of the video, in addition to relating to this coronavirus, how it affects everybody, including a musician as myself and an active performer, entertainer, I told you I would give you some tips. These are tips that I've practiced, and these are tips that are common sense, and these are tips from reliable resources, in this case, such as doctors. And I also have tips from somebody who works in the medical field in a children's hospital. And the reason why that is so valuable is because children are always sick. Children, especially infants, don't have the ability to tell those doctors what's wrong with them. So those doctors are the best detectives. Those doctors and PAs are at the top of their field as far as diagnosing a child's illness and preventing anything from happening to them. So I found that advice to be very useful to pass along to you. Here it is, as I promised. You already know preventative steps to protect yourself. If you don't practice these, now is the best time to start if you haven't already started. Here's what I do. When I go shopping, we've got a typical week, shopping malls, grocery stores. I hit the music store really often. So I always wear a hoodie. Kind of tie a hoodie around my waist. Maybe it's not your fashion sense, but I see a lot of people wearing hoodies. Hoodies is always very comfortable. I usually am diligent when I open it with an elbow, gently open it with a knuckle. And if I can't open the door without using the handle, I just grab my hoodie and do this. First preventative measure to not touching a surface that everybody else has touched that day. Probably would recommend, if you're going to somewhere like the computer store, Microsoft store, Apple store, everybody's touching an iPad. This is probably the time to take some wipes. If you must go and use a touch screen, probably take some wipes, wipe that down if you can, or maybe avoid that altogether. Maybe this is the time to take a break from going to places like that where you're using touch screens or playing video games in a public place, and order on Amazon or order online. This is just a practice that I practice all the time. I always think somebody's touching the service. When I go to my gym, they ask me to sign in, and I say, can you sign it for me, please? Because everybody else has been touching that surface. And then for the rest of the day, wherever I'm working out, I have gloves on so that whatever I touch, my flesh doesn't touch the weights. And then when I get home, or even at the end of the workout before I leave the gym, it's wash, 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 20 seconds, and then rinse. We just talked about typical experiences: shopping, grocery stores, malls. Anytime you want to go shopping weekly, I'm a shopaholic, so I have to go out a lot and touch stuff that other people's stuff. That's probably going to change my habits and be more shopping at home. Entering public bathrooms, same deal. If you're physically able to, I've actually gently reached up with my foot and, flushed the toilet. I'm always using my elbow to open the men's bathroom door, or I'm using wipes, or I'm using a jacket that I'm going to wash at the end of the day to open and close doors and leave. If you're not able to physically lift your knee or foot, then you definitely better keep some wipes, or just avoid public bathrooms together if you can hold it till you get home. And always remember, don't touch your face. There might be a place where you have to wash your hands. At another place, chances are you're going to touch your eyes, move your hair, scratch your chin, something. Avoid that until you wash your hands 20 seconds. This tip comes from a PA at a children's hospital. If you see somebody sneeze, such as on an airplane trip, a bus trip, a travel trip, where you can't move away in time, cover your mouth, breathe into your shoulder, give it a couple minutes. If you have a jacket, and remove yourself from that area. If you're on an airplane ride, you're unfortunately not able to move, this is all you can do. I did this in cold and flu season, along with a flu shot a couple months ago, and I was fine. Never got sick. I've been practicing this for over 10 years from that advice of that PA from the children's hospital. These are all common sense pieces of advice, and certainly you've been hearing it on the news, so it's nothing new you're hearing from me. But I've been practicing these things for over 10 years. I've traveled. I've never missed a gig. Healthy lifestyle. If you want to DM me and message me privately because you're interested in being the type of musician that has a rigorous travel and practice schedule, I certainly can give you advice on how I did it. I have a rigorous travel practice schedule, and yet I have time to go to the gym. I have time to eat healthy. It's no different from practicing your guitar and doing the scales. If you can do that, that's how I achieved my ability to stay in shape and be able to do the gig the next day after a long night. Not too much drinking, good diet. I applied the same discipline I did to learning all that guitar and music, learning instrument and learning how to read music, to the same healthy lifestyle that I'm talking to you about. If you don't do that, now is the time to do it, to prevent disease, the spread of disease. And you want to play music forever, right? A true musician never gives this up, okay? A true musician never stops this. A true musician doesn't say, I used to do that. No, musician is up the next day playing guitar, playing piano, playing. I've heard people say, I'm as healthy as ever. Are they? Or are they just somebody who hasn't got anything yet? If we're dealing with the coronavirus and we're trying to prevent the spread of it, we're washing hands, we're staying away from people, we're avoiding the big crowds, you still can catch something. And if you're a smoker, that's going to keep you from healing, or it's going to delay the process of healing anything. Even if you get an injury, say you're a drummer, or you got to be an active singer that jumps around and you're smoking, eventually it's going to catch up to you. You won't be able to sing anymore. You won't be able to keep that stamina up. Same with alcoholics. It's one thing to have the recommended glass of wine every other day, or, a hard drink once in a while, but in excess, it's going to keep you from healing. It's going to delay that healing process. So you've prevented the spread of disease. You've washed your hands. You haven't really had any major disease in your family, but if it's hereditary, or if you're in a position where you can't stay away from people and you're going to get something like the coronavirus and you're smoking, drinking, there goes your chances of healing fast, and even worse, could be fatal. So that is something you can research on smoking and drinking and how it prevents healing. It's advice that I've learned again from the same PA that works at the Children's Hospital, because they also know about adult medicine. Here's some good news. American Heart Association just released a quick walk increases your chance of living long by 50%. Wow. Whew, 50%. A 30-minute stroll for those senior citizens decreases heart attack by 67%. That's easy. That's free. If you're, say, an engineer, I used to do this when I was starting out. I probably wasn't playing live much, but I loved getting on the computer and recording and playing back and dealing with the sounds and VST instruments. I mean, you can be in there all day. So somebody told me, you got to get up and walk, man. So at one point I would mix for an hour or two, or to write or compose or sequence for an hour or two in Pro Tools. I'd take a half-hour walk with my mixes and the headphones, and that way that sedentary lifestyle didn't catch up with me. Preventative medicine, get up and walk. It's right there. Diet. If you haven't led a healthy diet at a young age, and as you age and you're in this profession, and this is any industry, not just music, it's stockbrokers, the entrepreneurs, the people who have to go out there and hit the bricks every day and work. Doesn't matter who you are, you're human. Diet is your fuel. Musicians who are on the go usually don't have a problem finding food. There's always something open, but that's going to catch up to you. And if you're a fast food junkie, that's heart attack city at one point, and you're a successful drummer, and everybody's depending on you to be the most active, probably physically active person in the band, right? What are you going to do about that? So I would say now's the time to seek diet advice if your diet isn't good, so you can tour forever. For instance, Starbucks. Everywhere, right? I'm addicted to Starbucks. Seen people stand in line, and I heard somebody say one day, oh, I love coming to Starbucks. I'm going to have Frappuccino, Mochaccino, whatever. It's like a morning milkshake. No, it is a milkshake. The calories and the sugar they're at, you may as well have a cheeseburger. You may as well have a quad burger with cheese and bacon. You could start by kicking little things off their menu, kicking things off your diet that are probably adding up that you don't think are bad for you. Now, coffee can be bad for you in excess, but I don't see anything wrong with the coffee here and there. Decaf, if you will. I'll go get the large coffee. I'll go put the sweetener of my choice, or maybe I'll bring my own sweetener. And I'll put in the cinnamon, and I'll put in the spices, and boy, it tastes like a delicious coffee. It's expensive enough, and you can avoid all the sugar. Oatmeal. A lot of times when I'm traveling, there's a Starbucks, and I can't find any healthy choices. Grains. Never underestimate the power of good whole grain breakfast or lunch. So I have tons of diet tips, and I just wanted to start with some simple ones. So if there's anything you're seeking beyond what this video offered and you need diet tips, look me up. I've been able to use these diet tips forever. Travel, nonstop musician, and people are always asking me, hey, Brev, how are you able to do it? Play a gig, be in the studio all day, get up the next day doing a gig. That's the way I do it. It's diet, it's working out, and it's being driven and loving the craft. Hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing here, and hit subscribe on the channel. This is Brev Sullivan. Have a good night.